obviously Caleb Williams number one. I think then the conversation becomes, what do the Bears do at 9?
Yeah, I think they have two options. I really do. I thought about this a lot during the course of the weekend and talking to people in the league and friends and everybody that have an opinion, and they try to put it all together. But I think Romo Dunze, if he's there, you don't think about it, you just take him. And you have to be prepared for all the options. That's what these teams are doing these weeks, preparing for any possible scenario. And what do we do? If this happens, how do we deal with it? What's our decision going to be? You don't have 2 hours to think about it. So at the end of the day, if Romo Dunze happens to slide to 9, I'm taking him. If he's not available at 9, he's gone, which I think is a strong possibility because he's a great player, and he's the 5th highest rated player on my board right now, then you think about trading down. I think getting that 2, if you can't get the 2, try to get a 3, but move down and get that pass rusher. Get that edge rusher opposite Montez Sweat, which turned out to be a great trade for Ryan Poles. And now if you can get a guy like, say, Latu Latu, if you want to go down, Jared Verse, somebody like that at a point in the draft where the little tightness in the hips for Verse doesn't bother you as much. The prior neck injury for Latu Latu doesn't bother you as much moving down and recouping a draft choice. So I think those are, and if you want a pass rusher in the 3rd or 4th round, I'll give you a couple names if you don't get one in the 1st. If, say, you got Odunze, it would be Brennan Jackson from Washington State and Mo Kamara from Colorado State are two very good pass rushers that could drop into the 3rd round.
So as far as Odunze is concerned, do you believe Neighbors is certainly going to be taken before Odunze, or do you think there's a chance that there will be a team who likes Odunze more and maybe Neighbors slides to 9?
I don't think Neighbors is sliding. I mean, it's just too much positive momentum. I hear some of the things that come out. That always comes out a couple weeks leading up to the draft. They're always trying to throw stuff out there. A lot of times you're better off. Ernie Accorsi told me this years ago, you're better off going on vacation in April, come back 3-4 days before the draft, and listen to all this nonsense. Because a lot of it is just nonsense about players. We heard it last year about some players that have any impact. No. So, again, I think Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Romo Dunze, they're all great. What order they're going to come off the board, I think it's Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze. Some think it's Neighbors, Harrison, Odunze. Others might have Odunze at 2. But I think the consensus, guys, is Harrison or Neighbors, and then Odunze. And that's not taking anything away from Rome. Rome is a great player. But right now, I wouldn't be shocked if Neighbors was the first receiver off the board. But the bottom line is, one's going to go 5 or 6, and the other one's going to, one could drop to 9. So you're going to have 2 of these receivers, 4 at 4 with Arizona. If they trade out, say, then maybe somebody slides, because there's talk that Arizona could move out of 4 and then move back in or do something. They got to get a receiver too. And I don't think they want to lose one of these 3. That's why that made no sense to me. But then Adam Schefter talked this week about doing what they did last year. Go 4, down to, say, 11, and then back up. So, again, there's a lot of options because these 3 receivers guys are special.
So, and let me ask you about what you were just saying about a lot of this disinformation that is out there. There's a lot of people right now who have speculated that the Bears could be trading down, and that in their mocks, in these what they're hearing mock drafts, them saying, hey, Odunze could be on the board, or this wide receiver could be on the board at 9, but still have the Bears trading back. Do you believe that could be some misinformation being thrown because the Bears want people to believe something else?
Yeah, I don't know where a lot of stuff comes from. That's what you don't know. The thing I've always known is no teams are telling you what they're doing. And sometimes stuff can leak from people within the organization. But I know for a fact, I've known enough of these guys over the years, and I've been good friends with a lot of guys in the league over the last 46 years. And outside of 1 or 2 that would trust me, nobody was telling me what they were going to do. And now some would, a couple would, but they knew that I wasn't going to say it to anybody, because if I did, they'd never talk to me again. So, and I never would do that to a great friend, wouldn't do it to anybody, but certainly to a great friend. And then they would say to me, wait till we're on the clock, and you're free to say whatever you want. Because if you say before that, I don't want anybody to know, because we might have a trade opportunity here. So they don't want to let anybody know what they're thinking. So again, no, I don't believe any of this. And like I said, that's why I know how much work and time and effort goes into this. Why in the world would you want anything you really are going to do to be out in the public or get to another team? There's no way. And I know what teams say to their people. If you let anything out, I know Ernie used to say that. If I get wind that anybody in this room leaked any information, you're fired. One spot. Nope, I don't want to hear anything, you're gone. So that's the way it should be. And I think that's the way it is in some organizations. I don't know if all of them are like that, but that's the way I would be if I were GM. If I were an owner, I'd say, hey, anybody leaks any of this stuff out, start packing your bags.
Right. Hey, Mel, you know, in recent years, I think the NFL has shown us that you can find difference-making receivers outside of the first round. Guys are available. It's a position that has really blossomed. With that said, do you believe that these top three, and there's no such thing as a can't miss, because I know that there are no sure things in life, especially in the National Football League. But are these three guys just that special that they should all be gone at least by 9?
1,000%, yes. They all are special. They all should be great. We've had years where they've had the big three before, and it worked out where all of them were really good. So, yes, I would expect all three of these. If we're talking 5 years from now and 2 of the 3 are great, it would be a surprise. I think all 3 will be great. So that's why there's a drop-off. Doesn't mean it's going to work that way, but right now, projecting into the NFL from college, there is a significant, or I'd say a drop-off, some would say significant, down to the fourth wide receiver, which could be Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, who was a one-year wonder at LSU this year, or Xavier Worthy, who ran a 4.21, heck of a player, but he's 165 pounds. Xavier Legette, big A.J. Brown type, they say, right? But he only had one great year. Why would a guy that's A.J. Brown only have one great year at South Carolina? I mean, come on. So that's why you got to temper your enthusiasm there just a bit. A great second-round receiver is Jalen McMillan from Washington. Heck of a player. I think he could be a standout. But he is going to be available, I think, in round 2. He's a teammate of Rome Odunze. Heck of a player. Got a little banged up this year, missed some time. Jalen Polk became the guy that was getting his catches, and all of a sudden McMillan's kind of forgotten about. But there's a receiver, if you're looking for a second-round steal in a 2 or 3 year period, Jalen McMillan, I think, from Washington would be that guy as well.
Mel Kiper Jr. joining us, Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000. We have entertained the notion about the Bears possibly moving up. What about, what would your thoughts be on moving up for Marvin Harrison Jr., as you just talked about? He is a guy who I think he's only visited 2 teams, and the Bears being one of them. And would you do it at 9? And what would it take, in your estimation, for the Bears to go up and get him?
Well, they don't have the 2. So, again, you're talking about future picks. And, again, you have extra picks next year, I believe, in the 3rd. So you have some draft capital there. But, again, if you can – I would much rather stay at 9 and get a Rome Odunze than have to move up when you don't have a 2 already. And this team needs an edge rusher. Make no mistake, this team has that need area there that they want to get an edge rusher. Maybe another offensive lineman, being as strong in the trenches. So, again, when you have that really desire and need of a defensive end opposite a pass rusher, opposite Montez Sweat, you got to have the ability to use a pick on that player, and you can't wait till the 4th, 5th round. If, like I said, Brennan Jackson and Mo Camara, they might be gone in the 3rd round. So again, you got to be careful. Again, especially when we know there's very little, if any, separation. I have Harrison at 3, I have Neighbors at 4, and Odunze at 5 on my board. And guess what, guys? They all have the same grade.
Same grade.
That's not when I say same grade. You still have to give somebody the edge. I was loyal to Marvin Harrison, loved the kid, I was with his dad when he came out. I'm not kidding. Marvin Harrison Jr. had Kyle McCord to throw the football. He's not even at school anymore. Malik Neighbors had Jaden Daniels, right? Rome Odunze had Michael Penix Jr. So it was a big difference. And I know in the Georgia game a couple of years ago, if Ohio State doesn't lose Marvin Harrison Jr. to that injury into the 3rd quarter, they win that game by a couple touchdowns. They lost that game. So they probably win a national title or certainly are playing for it, right? So he's a pivotal guy, critical entity. I'm not going to move him down, but it's like I say, you're splitting hairs when you talk about ranking these 3 guys.
Mel, how far a drop is it from Joe Alt to the next highest rated tackle in your opinion?
Well, it depends what you want. Remember, he's a left tackle. He's been a left tackle. He started out, and I'm a big Notre Dame guy, so I watch their games 25 times a week, over and over again. So they've been a little too critical of some. I've always thought people that know me, I've always thought sometimes you're a little too critical. Well, they didn't say that about Jimmy Clausen, who I missed on a long time ago. And some said I had a vendetta against Notre Dame players, which was ridiculous. Some said I love Notre Dame players, which I never did. I tried to be objective. Bottom line is Joe Alt's a left tackle, got better and better, and he's the left tackle that I think Tennessee would want to have protecting Will Levis, who showed a lot of promise as a rookie. I would say J.C. Latham or Tali Fuaga would be the elite right tackle that somebody's going to be looking for there. I would certainly say Graham Barton if you're looking for an anchor, and I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will be looking for that kind of guy. Could be a heck of a player there. But another tackle as well would be Tyler Guyton. Marius Mims is going to be a surprise. I think he could get into the middle of the first. If I had to gamble or roll the dice on somebody jumping a little higher than he's projected, it may be Marius Mims from Georgia. He only started 8 games, but boy, does he have a lot of talent. He's incredibly long in terms of his arm length. He's got huge hands. He played really well for those 8 games that he started. So that's the kind of guy there that somebody's going to, I think, roll the dice on a little earlier than people are mocking him right now.
Mel, there are others out there that believe Jaden Daniels is the best of the quarterback prospects here. You have Caleb Williams still at the top of your list. What differentiates Williams from the others, in your opinion?
Well, I had a super high grade on Williams coming in after 2022, and nothing really happened until the Notre Dame game and a couple games afterwards to lessen your enthusiasm. And that would only be because he had a bad offensive line. He didn't have Jordan Addison this year, and he did obviously struggle in a couple of those games. Notre Dame game was just a bad game for him. But it wasn't like, Drake May didn't have some rough games, and Jaden was a 4th-round pick before this year. Keep that in mind. So you had this guy who was the generational quarterback, would have been the number 1 pick last year, right? Over Young, and he was certainly number 1 by miles coming into the year. And here's this guy moves from a 4th-round pick up to the number 2 pick. Does he overtake Caleb Williams? That's a lot for me to do. When Caleb really did nothing this year to say, get off Caleb Williams and move somebody in there. That did Jaden play great? He did. Is he perfect? No. He's still got some things he needs to work on. And he was a guy who got tremendously improved over last year, just like Joe Burrow did, second year at LSU. And he's a great dual-threat quarterback. He's added some weight. But to me, Caleb is still, I wouldn't say by miles, but I still think he's the best quarterback in this draft, with Jaden 2nd, Drake May 3, and J.J. McCarthy 4. And those are the 2 21-year-olds that need a little time, but they're quarterbacks that there's a lot of mixed opinion on, put it that way. They're the top 2, not as much. 3 and 4, there's some mixed opinion.
We play the comp game. Who's your comp for Caleb Williams that's currently in the National Football League?
I don't do the comp game because the comps are always to great players, and we know most of these guys, 50% of these first-rounders will be disappointment. So the comps are always the stars, and it creates a false impression and expectations through the roof when they're unrealistic. Patrick Mahomes was the comp to Caleb Williams. Okay, Drake Mays was Justin Herbert. Yeah. Jaden Daniels was Lamar Jackson and Randall Cunningham. Okay, I could go on and on. J.J. McCarthy, I thought he kind of reminds me a little bit of Jim Harbaugh, his coach, and the guy that loves him because he kind of reminds him, I think, of himself. So you always go to the good or great players with comps. You never go to a guy who's a disappointment. Right. So, but I do think those are some comps that were out there. Bo Nix to Drew Brees, right? So again, Drew Brees was first pick in the 2nd round. Sometimes comps aren't who they became, guys. It's who they were coming out. Okay, so Drew Brees wasn't expected to be any superstar quarterback. He went first pick in the 2nd round. He was let go by the Chargers when they got Phillip Rivers. He went to New Orleans. Hey, Miami could have had him. Miami didn't want him because they said, that shoulder bothers us. We'll go get Dante Culpepper. If that would have happened, Nick Saban would have never left Miami. He would have never been at Alabama and won all those championships. So that's how history would have been rewritten, guys. So again, you're basing the comp on who they became or who they were coming out.
Is this finally it, though, Mel? I mean, are we finally getting our guy? Are we finally getting our star at quarterback?
I hope so. I mean, you never know. I can't. Nobody's smart enough to. It's a crystal ball to say 100% guaranteed. Nobody knows. Like I said, people doubted Peyton Manning when he came out. I heard people in the league say if his name was Peyton Jones, he would have been a 3rd-round pick and all. So again, there's a lot of things that go on with quarterbacks that beyond how good they are. Because as you guys all know, it's about structure. It's about consistency. There's a quarterback coming out of Tulane, Michael Pratt. He's on his 7th offensive coordinator dating back to high school. Okay, 7th or 8th offense, four offensive coordinators in 4 years at Tulane. Yet he still played pretty well. You can't do that in the NFL. So what usually, unless it's a Ryan Leaf situation where it goes beyond the team, the organization, unless it's that type of thing going on there where he's, whatever it takes to be a great quarterback, putting in the time and being that leader, doing all those things intangible-wise, unless it's something like that a player maybe doesn't have necessarily, then all of a sudden then it's on the organization. Because the late, great Bill Walsh told me this years and years ago. I think it was 1994. I sat for an hour and a half at the expansion draft and talked to Bill Walsh in a meeting we were having. The meeting was over, and he said, no, if once they show you they're great, The coaching staff, it's up to them to maintain that greatness. Once they show you it, they got to be consistent. And that's not on always the player, that's on us. So I always believe that once somebody shows you they can be really, really good at the pro level, as long as they have the work ethic and the passion and they're smart and they can do all the things you need to do, and from an intangible standpoint, the coaching staff with continuity has to keep that going.
It's good words right there. You mentioned again that if a wide receiver is in there, maybe the Bears move down to the middle of the first round and go edge rusher. What differentiates a couple of the guys? What are some of the characteristics of each guy that you like most?
Well, Dallas Turner is going to probably be gone at 8, maybe even a little earlier, but he's at Alabama. He had a really good year. He still needs to develop a counter move. I thought they always didn't really utilize him the way I would like to see edge rushers just go after a quarterback. And in college, they have him dropping back in the coverage. Sometimes they take him out in running situations. And it's just, sometimes the way college players are handled is a little bit different than maybe the NFL would. Dallas Turner is going to go high. He'll be gone by the Bears pick. Now, if the Bears want to jump up a couple spots, if they feel they can give up some future pay, then they could probably acquire Dallas Turner ahead of Atlanta. I think Atlanta's a team that would really want him. He's not perfect yet either. Like I said, he needs to develop that counter move, but he's got a tremendous athleticism and physical prowess, and he wants to be great. Then you got Liatu Latu, who would have been the top guy, but he had that neck issue at Washington, put together 2 really good years at UCLA. Now, he's got bend. He's slippery. He's got a repertoire of moves that really give offensive tackles trouble, and he plays hard. So he's a kid who'll probably drop into the middle of the first round somewhere. Jared Verse, powerhouse, great attitude, loves to play the game, plays hard, physical, tough and strong against the run, just like I say, a powerhouse. But he's a little tight in the hips, and you see that when he's going after the quarterback. You saw it in some of the drills, the hoop drill and some others. So again, you can work. It's tough to work that out. So I think that pushes him to me around Miami, say at 21. So those are some of the guys. Like I gave you a couple guys I thought in the 3rd, 4th round could be really good value picks, as like say Brennan Jackson from Washington State and Mo Camara from Colorado State.
Mel, who is your favorite player, regardless of position, in this draft?
I love Troy Fautanu from Washington, the guard tackle. Was left tackle at Washington, probably be a Pro Bowl guard in the end. Just love the way he plays. You want to be entertained, turn on the tape with Troy Fautanu. Fun to watch. Just gets after it. Boy, he is so athletic, so talented, so physical, great punch. He just, everything about him screams Pro Bowl. So Fautanu on the offensive side. From a defensive standpoint, I think, you look at Edgerrin Cooper, a kid, it's going to be a 2nd-round pick. I just love watching the kid play because they put him outside. He got after the quarterback. He had a ton of tackles for lost sacks. Inside, he can chase. He's got range. He can cover. I think Edgerrin Cooper is going to be a really good 2nd-round pick for somebody. I think guys were just entertaining to watch were those guys. Roman Wilson made some great catches for J.J. McCarthy. I'll tell you what, he went up and got it. We had him on the Daria Mel show a few weeks ago. What a great kid. Ran 4.39. He was the go-to guy for J.J. McCarthy on those critical 3rd downs that they usually put the quarterback in because they were a traditional old-school football team, right? But Roman Wilson's a really good football player. And I mentioned Jalen McMillan from Washington, one of my favorites as well. So from an offensive tackle standpoint, I think you look at guys down the line a little bit. Nathan Thomas from Louisiana Lafayette is going to be a really good 4th-round pick, could go as high as the 3rd. I think he's intriguing. So, it's going to be a fun draft. Like I said this week, and I didn't overstate it. I'm not just saying it. I've never said it before. It's the most fascinating draft I've been associated with in 46 years. Why? Because of the quarterbacks, the intrigue, teams that need them may not want that guy, and somebody may step into that spot and get that guy. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of entertainment over the 3 days of the NFL draft.
Yeah, with that said, Mel, I mean, one of the guys that I'm most intrigued by is J.J. McCarthy. How difficult is it to kind of assess him based on the style they asked him to play at Michigan and what that would translate to in the NFL?
I call it my Trey Lance category now. I just throw my hands. I just don't know. I didn't know what Trey Lance would be. I said it when he came. I had one game he started, Central Arkansas game. He wasn't great with his arm. He was great with his legs. That was the only game, that COVID year. And he goes 3rd. I didn't know what Trey. I can't say I knew he was going to be a disappointment. Didn't know if he was going to be a super. I didn't know. And you could say, well, you say, but no, you can't. You always have an idea whether he's going to be what kind of player. Now, you're going to be wrong. You're going to be right. But some guys you just don't know. And you just have to admit you don't have a feel for that player. I'll give you a running back. Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. I don't have a real feel for Braylon Allen. Sometimes guys that you like something, at the end of the day, it's hard to put a rating. JJ, I kept telling guys, I'm waiting for that game. I'm waiting for that game to put him in my top 25. Never found the game. Then I kept watching. Well, it's not him. It's because and I got him in the top 25. I got him to 14, 15. I can't get him any higher, and he's going to go in the top 5. So what ranking players does, Carl Peterson always said this, you rate players and you put them on a board to protect you from overdrafting somebody. That's why you do that exercise. And what teams would usually do, there would be some GM or we kind of change the board. Remember, you heard their stories. They go home the night before the draft. They come up the next morning. I'm into and the ratings changed. The board changed. So if you hold true to your board, you usually do well, and it usually protects you against overdrafting, and that's why we do that exercise. But I would say J.J. McCarthy is a tough one for me. I didn't know what they put him in the middle of the first, 14, 15, 16. Guess what? He's going to go long before that.
Yeah.
Finally, as the draft coverage ends, after you guys do the draft and everything like that, do you go put your feet up and go on a long vacation at all and stop watching tape? What do you do?
Tell you what I do. When I'm driving back Saturday night from Detroit, I'll be doing a grading each team's draft, and I do that show on Monday. So I'll put a grade, which obviously is just a subjective opinion. And then when we get back after that, I start evaluating guys for 2025. And actually on day 3 of the draft, Rob Adansky, our producer, always asks me this week for my top 10 for 2025 and the top 5 quarterbacks. So I'll be providing that, and we'll talk about that. So May and June, guys, it's quiet. It's time you can spend doing just that. There's no pressure to provide a big board or ratings. And I get most of my work done for the next draft in May, June, July, and August. And that's why there's big boards that come out in August are based on 3-4 months of watching players and trying to figure this out, and then things will change. But those months are spent relaxing, having fun, and getting away because you got to regenerate, but watching an awful lot of football as well.
Awesome.